The Atlanta Braves get a win they absolutely had to have on Wednesday night, 7-1 over the Cincinnati Reds. Spencer Schwellenbach continues what's become an annual tradition for the Atlanta Braves in calling up a rookie starter who absolutely dominates. We'll discuss that. Also, Ozzie Albies nearing a return. What does that mean for Whit Merrifield and the rest of the lineup? We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves. Subscribe to us on YouTube if you're new. Please hit that thumbs up button as well so others can find us here at Locked On Braves. Leave me a comment down below, especially let me know if you're an everydayer or you make Locked On Braves your first listen of each and every day. Thank you so much for your support here at Locked On Braves. You're listening on the audio version. You can help me out by leaving me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. With that out of the way, on today's episode, we will talk about the Braves' 7-1 win on Wednesday night against the Cincinnati Reds. All these games are must win, but this one in particular, you just could not let get away. A slow start, but the offense comes on late. We'll talk a lot about Spencer Schwellenbach and this line of rookie starters that the Braves have called up. And they just continue to draft and develop these guys, and they come up and make huge contributions. We'll talk about that. Also, who could be the next one for the Braves starters to do that. And Ozzie Albies nearing his return. What does the lineup look like once he comes back? How does Whit Merrifield fit into all of that? Does Gio play shortstop? We'll answer those questions and more on today's episode, which is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, Wednesday night, the Braves had to have it. And again, all these games are must win the rest of the way. They're obviously not going to win them all, but after what happened on Tuesday night and losing 3 in a row, you just could not lose this game. Felt like especially you fall another game back here the rest of the way, and you feel like it's over. You have to be with it in at least 2 games of the Mets when that series comes around, but really you need to be within at least 1. I was hoping you would at least be tied going into that series, but with where you are now, 2 games back, at the very least, you have to be within a game or 2 going into that Mets series. You cannot lose any more ground in the NL wild card, or it really just does feel like it will be over. So that means you got to pick up some wins here against the Reds and the Marlins. And they do that on Wednesday night with a 7-1 win. And it starts with Spencer Schwellenbach on the mound. We're going to talk more about him and some other recent rookie starters for the Atlanta Braves. But 6 innings, 5 hits, 2 walks, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts on 93 pitches. Just 6 hard hit balls allowed, an 81.5 mile per hour average exit velocity against. This guy just gets weak contact. It is Max Fried levels. I've said that before, but it just really is. It's incredible to see the amount of weak contact that he gets. And that's what happens when, like Max Fried, you have 5-6 pitches that you can throw and you keep hitters off balance. You keep them guessing. You're going to get that weak contact, especially when you can command them the way that Spencer Schwellenbach and Max Fried do. Only 10 whiffs on 47 swings. So again, not an overly dominant start, but getting a lot of weak contact. And Spencer Schwellenbach went over the 150 mark combined this year between the minor leagues and Major League Baseball. It's obviously the most innings he's ever thrown. We talked about this before. He only threw 65 innings in the minor leagues last year. He threw just over 30 innings his last year at Nebraska, and he's over 150 innings this year. Now, we talked about this on the postcast, me and Grant McCauley. Go back and check that out if you haven't already. There's nothing really in the science to prove that a big innings jump one year to the next all of a sudden just leads to an injury. What has been proven is that the more you throw, the more likely you are to get injured at some point. Don't really know when it's going to come, but we've talked about this all year long. We've talked about it for years now. Pitchers are just ticking time bombs. It's only a matter of time until they get hurt. The only thing that really concerns me, other than, at what point is one of these guys going to get hurt, is he losing any steam? Because you are making a big jump in innings. It's the most innings you've ever thrown in a year. And are you going to tire out? And we haven't seen that from Schwellenbach. He hit 98 on Wednesday night. The velocity looked really good. The velocity was actually up on his yearly average in the start on Wednesday. And the stuff obviously looks really, really good. Now, some of these starts haven't been as dominant as they were maybe a month ago. We were seeing him rack up 7, 8, 9, 10 strikeouts in some of these starts. So maybe that is a little bit of a sign of him getting tired. Maybe it's a sign of the league adjusting to him a little bit. Either way, he's still been effective and really, really good. But that is the only thing that I worry about down the stretch is, does he get tired? But he didn't show any of that or any signs of that in this start. In the bullpen, you go to Dylan Lee in the 7th inning. And look, you used Pierce Johnson the night before. You obviously weren't going to use him, but I'm curious to see, is Dylan Lee become the 7th inning guy, or is it just a matchup situation in that 7th inning going forward, depending on if you have some lefties or some righties coming up, whether or not you go to Dylan Lee or Pierce Johnson. But Dylan Lee, I mean, look at his numbers. An ERA under 2 on the year. He's been really, really good, and he's good against lefties and righties. So we'll see what that looks like going forward if Dylan Lee maybe has jumped Pierce Johnson for that 7th inning role. Obviously, you're going to stick with Joe Jimenez in the 8th, who gets out righties and lefties, and Iglesias in the 9th. But I think that 7th inning role could be one that maybe, again, it might be matchup dependent the rest of the way, or it might just be Dylan Lee's job the rest of the way. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But either way, Dylan Lee looked really, really good in his inning. Joe Jimenez, I know the Braves scored 2 in the 8th inning there, and you probably didn't have to go to Joe Jimenez, but it's typically been a rule of the Braves that once a pitcher gets hot, that you might as well just bring him in. So I think that was the case for Artie for putting Joe Jimenez in that game, but the offense did score enough that you could avoid using Iglesias in this one. And that's always good when you can give your best relievers a night off, especially with how much they've had to pitch in the second half of this season. Now, on the offensive side of things, after the hot start in Tuesday's game and then the cold finish to that one, not being able to push another run across in the second half of that game to tie or win it, and then you come out on Wednesday and you have a very slow start offensively to the game. Now, Jacob Junis might be a name to watch for next year. This seems like the season where relievers who were once starters all of a sudden turned back into starters are doing really well. Obviously, the Braves have had a couple examples of that with Ronaldo Lopez and Grant Holmes to some degree. You've seen it with other teams, I feel like, across the league. But Jacob Junis looked really good, and he has looked really good since taking over that starter role for the Reds. Now, I think the Braves made him look much better than maybe he really was, but that slider is pretty nasty that he has. It's got some really tight break on it. So I give him some credit, but it was just quick at bat after quick at bat against Jacob Junis. Finally, in that 4th inning, you saw some good at bats, even with maybe not all the hits and coming through, although you did get a run in that inning, back-to-back hits from Ozuna and Olsen. But even before that, you saw Michael Harris go to a 3-2 count, Jorge Soler go to a 3-2 count. So you did see some better at bats that second time through, but just so many quick at bats, especially early in that game. It just felt like another game where the offense was going to let the team down and not get going. But fortunately, that was not the case, as in the second half of the game, the offense really got going against the Reds bullpen. In the 7th inning, you had Marcell Ozuna, who broke his homerless drought with a home run on a 3-0 fastball right down the middle. He did not miss it, although I was not as convinced. But then I remember we're playing in Great American Small Park there, and so he was able to get it out by plenty, and he knew he had it. He sat there and was watching it the whole time. But that was good to see that power. And then Matt Olson gets on a little flare. He certainly deserves all of those that he can get. And Ramon Laureano just misses a home run. That ball was absolutely crushed. I thought it was gone, but just off the top of the wall. And then you got second and third, nobody out. And you're all thinking exactly what I was thinking. Reds got him right where they want him. And that was almost the case. Whit Merrifield can't come through in a spot right there. He strikes out. Sean Murphy at least works a walk, gets on base, passes the baton, but he passed it to the wrong man because it was Orlando Arcia who takes the slider right down the middle and then swings at one, falling off the plate away. Not saying it's easy. Good slider there on a guy that can also pump it up to 97, 98, but it's just another terrible at bat for Orlando Arcia in that situation. But Gio Urshela to the rescue. This man is hearing whispers of him potentially losing his spot in the lineup, and he went off tonight. That was a big spot. Again, I talked about this on the postcast. I know it went on to be a 7-1 win, and maybe all those extra runs didn't matter, but it felt like that was the game right there. It felt like if the Braves did come through in that situation, you were going to see all the momentum go to the Reds. And again, no telling how things play out differently or if they do it all the rest of the way. But by getting that big hit, that big 2-out hit, driving in 2 more runs, you felt really comfortable about the game the rest of the way. Obviously, you got to be very careful pitching in that ballpark. Things can happen quickly on you. But that, to me, felt like the moment of the game. That at bat by Gio Urshela, being able to bring in those runs and not letting that situation get away from you again. It doesn't take away from the fact that you still almost had another terrible situation with runners on second and third and no outs, or at the very least a runner on third with less than 2 outs, but a big hit by Gio Urshela. Defensively, you had a great catch by Eli White in this game. You also had a good double play started by Gio Urshela. So again, he is not trying to lose any playing time over there. He had a big game, knowing that Ozzie is nearing his return. Some key moments in this game for me: the bottom of the fifth, Reds had 2 on, 1 out. That double play I just talked about, Gio starts that to help Schwellenbach get out of a jam. And it's really only 2 innings that Schwellenbach got into some trouble. That 5th inning, he hits a double play to get out of it. The 6th inning, Ellie leads off the inning with a triple, and then he hits the next batter. So it's first and third, nobody out, and you're thinking just limit the damage here. And he does. He strikes out the next batter. He does give up a run on a sacrifice bunt, then gives up a single, but nothing else after that, and leaves it with just that 1 run. So that was a great job. A guy who's at the end of his game, young kid. Like I said, only thing I worry about is fatigue for him at this point, and he's still able to bear down and get out of that 6th inning. So a great job by him. And then that top of the 7th, you get 3 runs on 4 hits, just a clutch hit by Gio Urshela. And again, that felt like the game to me. So those are some of the biggest moments for me in that game. Next, I want to turn our attention back to Spencer Schwellenbach, the great rookie season that he's having, and it's become a sensation, an annual thing of Atlanta Braves starters coming up in their rookie seasons and just having incredible years. We'll look more into that here next. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. We got a little something different for you happening right now, and not for too much longer. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel any time. Just visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/PlaySafe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. Again, that's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to download America's #1 sportsbook. Shouldn't have to worry when you buy tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use GameTime. If you're not using them by now, I don't know what you're doing. I've been talking about them for so long here on the podcast, and that's what I use whenever I go to my big events in the area, or when I go to Braves games. Last several Braves games I've been to, I use the GameTime app. Just used it a couple of weeks ago to go to a Blue Jays game in Atlanta. Was checking that GameTime app, constantly looking for those big deals. They have flash sales all the time happening on there, and sometimes those prices, they're going to get lower right up to game time. So you always got to be checking that app. You're thinking about going to a Braves game here down the stretch, helping them out on that final homestand. Make sure you're checking that GameTime out. You can filter it so you get an all-in price right there. Everything can happen on one screen. It is so easy to use, and you get a view from your seat right there in the app. Love using the GameTime app. Again, if you're not using it, you are certainly missing it out. They got the GameTime guarantee. That means you're going to get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section or row for less, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So download the GameTime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the GameTime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Terms apply. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of today. Go make your second listen to Locked On MLB podcast. Not yet. Wait till we're done here, but then go listen to Sully as he gets you prepped for the postseason. You can find that on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It is your team every day. We'll have 2 more podcasts here for you this week on Locked On Braves. We'll have one, a live episode Thursday night, and then a live episode Friday afternoon, which will be our mailbag episode. So look forward to that. And again, make sure you're subscribed on YouTube. I want to talk about Braves rookie starters because Spencer Schwellenbach having an incredible season, a 3.61 ERA, a 1.10 whip, 118 strikeouts, and 109 2/3 innings pitched. He is on a streak right now of 10 straight starts, giving up 3 earned or less. You can talk about the best pitchers in baseball, and the best pitchers will do this, but to have a guy and a rookie to come up and go that's 2.5 months worth of work there. And he has given your team a chance to win every time out. You can't ask for more in a starting pitcher. And I know Chris Sale is on a similar streak right now. That's all you can really ask for in a starting pitcher, that they can give you 5, 6, 7 innings every time out in 3 earned or less. Obviously, you would like for it to be less than that most of the time, and it has been most of the time, as it was on Wednesday for Spencer Schwellenbach. But again, to be a rookie who has never thrown a lot in his career, going back to his college days, to come up and do that, and again, have 10 straight starts where he gives your team a chance to win. I know one of those starts, he technically up 6 runs, but only 3 of them earned. But either way, it has just been incredible what he's been able to do. And since July 1st, so taking out the first 6 big league starts of his career, where in those starts, you watched it, and it's why the Braves stuck with him. Even though he had some rough patches in there, you could see the stuff that Schwellenbach had. And some of those were just some bad luck, a rookie pitcher making some rookie mistakes. But since July 1st, it's a 12-start stretch. He has a 2.88 ERA, a 1.01 whip, 72 innings pitched. That's a 6-inning per start average. So again, it's not just that he is keeping you in games, not giving him a lot of runs. He is consistently going deep into those ball games, getting you at least 6 innings, a 28.3% strikeout rate, a 3.8% walk rate is just ridiculous, 226 average against, and a 3.08 xFIP. So again, he has just been incredible all year long, but especially after those first 6 starts that he had. He's been on a 12-start stretch where he has been one of the better pitchers in baseball. I mean, there's no other way to say it. And again, that's what the league getting more looks at him, getting more video of him, and he is still able to go out and do things like he did on Wednesday night in a very hitter-friendly ballpark. But this is a line of Braves rookies now that have come up and really made an impact for the Atlanta Braves. And we talk about all the time their draft strategy and how they continue to go after starting pitching and whether or not that is the right strategy. I've maintained that I think it is, because I think starting pitching is so volatile that you need guys coming after guys in your system. And as we're going to see, some of these guys aren't around very long, and injuries are a very real thing, and teams are always needing starting pitching. So even though the Braves haven't had a great farm system, they've been able to go out and make trades because they have pitching depth to trade from. Now, 2023 isn't the best example. They didn't necessarily have a key guy that year, but A.J. Smith-Shawver did come up and gave the Braves some good innings, a 4.26 ERA and a 1.11 whip with 20 strikeouts, just 25 and a third innings. So again, not necessarily to the level of some of these other guys, but a guy that, kind of came up and was able to do some things for the Braves. Now, 2022, obviously Spencer Strider, 11 and he did not win Rookie of the Year, and we understand why, because Michael Harris is an everyday player and had an unbelievable rookie season. But to come up as a rookie, go 11-5 with a 2.67 ERA, a 0.995 whip, and 202 strikeouts and 131 2/3 innings and not win Rookie of the Year feels absolutely criminal. But that just speaks to how good Michael Harris was. And again, anytime you have guys who are both just unbelievably good and one of them's an everyday position player, they should trump the guy that's pitching every 5th day. But 200 strikeouts as a rookie and 131 2/3 innings. So obviously just an incredible rookie season for Spencer Strider, but he wasn't the only rookie pitcher that year. We're really only talking about starters, but I got to mention Dylan Lee, a 2.13 ERA that year and a 0.99 whip in 50 2/3 innings with 59 strikeouts. And then Bryce Elder had a 3.17 ERA that year and 54 innings pitched. So several good rookie pitchers coming up for the Braves that year. Going to 2021, Ian Anderson, 9-5, a 3.58 ERA, a 1.23 whip, and 124 strikeouts and 128 and a third innings. He also got Rookie of the Year votes in 2020 when he went 3-2 with a 1.95 ERA, a 1.082 whip, and 41 strikeouts in 32 and a third innings. So 2 years in a row there, you got a rookie Ian Anderson that was contributing for you. And then going back to 2019, where this run really began, Michael Soroka comes up and goes 13-4 with a 2.68 ERA, a 1.11 whip, and 142 strikeouts and 174 and 2/3 innings. So again, that is a pretty long stretch now of the Braves having a rookie starter come up and really make an impact. And that's just it's the great development of this Braves staff. And look, we're only talking about rookie seasons. Obviously, there's been other pitchers, Kyle Wright, who's come up and had some big years for the Braves, and others. But these aren't just starters that are coming up and being fourth or fifth starters. These are guys that are coming up and having a huge impact. I mean, you look at Ian Anderson, a great 2021, great postseason. It leads to a World Series. So it is just, again, the Braves development team drafting these guys, developing them to come up and have a huge impact right away. And that's not always going to happen. And look, you look at all these were guys that they all drafted. These weren't guys they traded for. Soroka, Anderson, Strider, Smith-Shawver, Schwellenbach. These are all guys they drafted and developed, and they've turned into really good pitchers. Now, the cautionary story here is obviously Soroka to Achilles injuries is pretty much a non-factor. Couldn't even stick on the White Sox rotation. Ian Anderson, losing command a little bit, then having surgery, and the Braves don't even trust him enough to call him up to start over Grant Holmes right now. Spencer Strider, obviously, we still think he's going to be great, but now he's missed an entire year. So this is the other reason why you continue to draft and develop pitching, because you never know when those guys are going to lose it or get injured. And again, it just seems like it's a matter of time with pitching. But the Braves have done a great job of having that next guy ready to step up. Who is going to be that guy next year? That's probably something we'll talk a lot about in the offseason, but certainly, as you look at it right now, it could be A.J. Smith-Shawver still, although we've seen him over parts of 2 seasons at this point. It could be Hurston Waldrop, who made his debut in 2024. And we'll probably talk about this more on Miners Monday, but I wanted to just briefly mention Waldrop quietly had a pretty good season, mostly between AA and AAA. He had a 3.47 ERA. Now, the thing that sticks out, a 1.48 whip. He walked 45 batters in 93 1/3 innings. He did have 97 strikeouts. I would honestly expect a little bit more than that for Hurston Waldrop. It's still the same concerns going into this offseason as it was last offseason, but he is still just 22 years old, and he doesn't turn 23 until next June. And this was his first full professional season. So some of us, myself included, might be being a little too hard on Hurston Waldrop and expecting him to come up and just be this stud right away. Obviously needs some more development, and I'm very much a believer in him, but we didn't really see those adjustments get made this year. So I don't know how much confidence we have going into next year with him, where I think he'll get another opportunity, but there are still those concerns that he has to deal with. Now, some other sneaky contenders, because I certainly would have put A.J. Smith-Shawver or Hurston Waldrop ahead of Spencer Schwellenbach coming into this year as a guy who could break out. But some sneaky contenders for next year, Lucas Braun and Drew Hackenberg. Talked about them on this past Monday's episode when we talked about Miners Monday. Those are 2 guys who have shot up the ranks this year. Hackenberg making all the way to AAA, Lucas Braun at AA. Both of those guys doing really well, and they're knocking on the door. I think they very well could get an opportunity next year. I don't know that they have the upside or potential, at least I don't think that they do, of a Spencer Schwellenbach. I'm excited to go back and look at those 2 guys on film this offseason. Maybe my mind changes a little bit, because I was very high on Schwellenbach coming into the season. I just didn't think they would push him this quickly. I don't have that same optimism for a Braun or a Hackenberg, but I think they are guys who can come up and pitch to a 3.8, 4.2 type of ERA, be a 4th or 5th starter, and give you some good innings. So those are some sneaky contenders. An extra sneaky contender is J.R. Ritchie. And if you listen to the podcast, you know he's a guy that I love. A 2.99 ERA, 1.13 whip, and 49 2/3 innings this year, coming back from Tommy John surgery. He's another guy I cannot wait to get back in the offseason and break down film on him to see what he looks like. Maybe another sneaky pick. And then after him, an extra sneaky pick is War Eagle, Auburn Tiger, Blake Burkhalter, who had a 3.00 ERA and a 1.21 whip in 72 innings with 69 strikeouts as he came back from Tommy John surgery this past year. He's already 24, like I said, a college pitcher from Auburn. Did I say he was from Auburn? He's from Auburn. Similar path as Schwellenbach, a guy who was a reliever at Auburn, in case I didn't tell you that already. And again, just good mix. I still think he's probably long-term a reliever, but he's been good as a starter, and we'll see how that goes. So those are some names for you to watch next year that could be that rookie starter to continue this annual tradition that the Atlanta Braves have of calling up a rookie starter and him just absolutely taking off. Somebody else the Braves need to take off is Ozzie Albies. He could be nearing his return. He's looked good on his rehab assignment. When could he be back, and who will he replace in the lineup? We'll discuss that next. For most of us who like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Ronald Acuna Jr. or Mike Trout rookie auto is just not in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. I got 3 kids. I got mouths to feed. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints from a fraction of the retail price. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. After your pools are revealed, they'll immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent, with a full grade rationale provided and an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb and use code LockedOnMLB. That's arenaclub.com/lockedonmlb. Code LockedOnMLB for 10% off your first purchase. The Braves could be getting a boost to their lineup, and boy, could they use one. Even if it is a injured Ozzie Albies who can only swing from one side of the plate, I will absolutely take it. And he's looked good on his couple of rehab assignments, including a home run that he hit on Tuesday night, picked up another hit on Wednesday night against a right-handed pitcher. He is expected to be in the lineup on Friday night as they start a series against the Marlins in Miami. Obviously won't be there on Thursday afternoon, as that's an afternoon game in Cincinnati, so not going to rush him up there for that, but probably start him in Miami. And the question a lot of Braves fans have is, you're going to play Ozzie Albies at second base. I mean, you're going to put Ozzie in there, and he's going to play second. It's just the only place that he can play. What does that mean for Gio Urshela? What does that mean for Whit Merrifield? What does that mean for Orlando Arcia? I had a lot of people telling me in the comments on X, get Orlando Arcia out of there. I don't know how you take away Orlando Arcia from shortstop, where I know he's been putrid at the plate for most of the year, but he's still your best defensive shortstop. I don't know if you go a left side of your infield. And again, this is a guy who's very much defensive minded and defensive first, but a left side of the infield of Gio Urshela at shortstop and Whit Merrifield at third base gives me nightmares. And it's a situation where, do you go for the offense, which the Braves desperately need, or do you stick with the defense, which the Braves desperately need, behind a good pitching staff? Because the formula for winning is good pitching. Can we get enough offense? In my mind, I stick with Gio Urshela at third, Orlando Arcia at shortstop, and I used Whit Merrifield, who, by the way, is playing on a hurt foot and, by the way, is 0 for his last 14. I use Whit Merrifield off the bench as a guy to come in and pinch hit, a guy to pinch run. And that's how I use Whit Merrifield the rest of the way. I know it's unfortunate, and Whit's been a good part of the lineup since he has become a full-time starter for the Braves. But I just, again, that left side of the infield of Whit and Gio just really scares me defensively. Gio's been great defensively at third base. I don't want to mess with that. As bad as RC has been at the plate, he's been really solid defensively at shortstop. So that's what I would do. We'll see what Brian Snitker decides to do. And we'll see on Friday as Ozzie Albies looks to join the team. Now on Thursday afternoon game, it's going to be Chris Sale versus Julian Aguiar. And the 23-year-old Aguiar, right-handed pitcher, 12th round pick in 2021 out of junior college, had a 4.40 ERA and 9 starts at AAA with just 41 strikeouts and 47 innings with 16 walks. Reds call him up, give him a shot. They've had some injuries. Green, Lodolo, Hunter Green, and Lodolo both out injured for them. So they're looking for starters, and they called up Aguiar. In 6 big league starts, it's a 4.88 ERA, a 1.23 whip, 15 strikeouts to 10 walks in 27 2/3 innings, 6 home runs allowed in 27 2/3 innings, and just 2 starts at home. So it's a small sample size, but we know you can hit a lot of home runs in that ballpark. He's given up 3 home runs in just 6 2/3 innings at home. Now, his last start, his best one as a professional, he went 6 1/3 innings, allowed 3 earned runs on 3 hits and 2 walks with 4 strikeouts. It's a low to mid 90s sinker, a good changeup. It has just a 192 XBA against. Obviously, we're talking about a small sample size here, but the early results have been good on that changeup, and he throws a slider as well. I need 2 home runs off this kid. I need this offense to just come out. I know Chris Sale is on the mound. Maybe you think you don't need a lot of runs, but you just never know in this ballpark. Come out, have some good at-bats against this kid, get a couple of home runs in that ballpark against him, a guy that doesn't have a huge ground ball rate despite throwing that sinker changeup combination. So look for the pitch up, hit it out of the ballpark, score a ton of runs, have no doubt, and give Chris Sale an easy win. Certainly with Sale on the mound in this matchup, you feel really good, but you just can't let up. There's no opportunity for that right now with the Braves. Every game has to be must win. You have to have that mentality no matter the score. If you're up by a bunch, whatever the case may be, keep adding on. Don't take anything for granted. And the Reds are 23rd in baseball in OPS against lefties versus 16th against righties. So they are better against righties than lefties. So again, this feels like a very favorable matchup on paper. But again, I hate to keep bringing it up, but a game that Chris Sale pitched against the White Sox felt like the most winnable game ever, and the Braves lost it. So nothing is a guarantee, but certainly feel very comfortable with Sale on the mound Thursday afternoon against the Reds, and hopefully the Braves will pick that win up, win this series, head to Miami, where they really need a sweep heading into that Mets series. We'll talk more about that over the weekend. Thank you for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen. Also, make sure you listen to the Braves and the Reds on Thursday afternoon on SiriusXM. Search Braves on the SXM app. Make sure you subscribe to YouTube. If you're new listening, hit that thumbs up button as well so others can find us. Make sure you follow us on social media at Locked On Braves and at Shortstop Ball. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.